Good afternoon, everybody. It is just after 1, I think, Thursday afternoon, and my name is Elize Hattin, the Smart Hub Business Manager. Welcome to HubLive today from the Smart Hub. Hello, Matthew Doyle. How are you?
Living the dream, always.
Living the dream. Oh, I love that. So you're drinking some very interesting drink before.
I put it away, so do you want me to pick it back up again?
Why not? Show us your drink. What are you drinking?
So it's what do we got? It's a sparkling vinegar drink with 100% naturally fermented vinegar from blueberry. There you go.
And we were just having a conversation about whether it was sour like vinegar or whether it was actually sweet. So it's
sweet? Quite sweet. It's quite nice.
It's quite sweet. Wonderful. So this amazing drink is manufactured in Rockhampton by Young Beamish, who is an amazing person. And so nice drinking local.
It's
drink.
fantastic,
awesome.
And I picked it up from the lovely little cafe we got around the back there, Blue Leaf Takeaway, around in the arcade. So if you want to try one, you can go get it from around there.
Absolutely.
Plug for Josh and his team there.
Oh, awesome. So very nice springy weather we have at the moment, right?
It's beautiful. I'm not looking forward to summer. I think there should be a law against Rockhampton summer.
No, we have aircon for that.
Yeah, but spring right now is beautiful.
Spring is absolutely glorious. Well, today we are back speaking to our trusty structure here. And as you know, we've spoken about marketing, sales, delivery, money systems team, and we're actually at the direction section today. So I was thinking this morning in preparation for our Hub Live, interestingly, we're going to run through the structure, and it would have taken us pretty much the best part of this year. And I was just talking to Jacinto, who's on our team, saying that when we put the new structure up, we'll just kind of paste it over the old structure and then we'll start all over again. So the new structure that I have in mind is a lot more simplified than this one, but it pretty much covers, again, all of the aspects that we need to look at around business and startups. So the reason why we do these Hub Lives is to encourage you as a business owner to adopt technology and modern best business practice to grow your business, to become more profitable, and to save time. And today is no different. I'm here with Matthew Doyle, who is from the he's the World Changers coach.
That's me.
Yes. And Matthew is going to help talk through direction with us. And we're going to start right at the top and talk about strategic thinking, and then maybe even touch on some technology tools that we can use to make that happen. So thank you very much for joining me on the couch.
I always love it. It's good fun.
It is good fun. So direction and strategy, what are your thoughts?
I've probably, over the long term, been guilty of probably trying to do too much without the strategy. Let's just wing it and hope for the best. And
how does that go?
Yeah, usually in a flaming ball of oh no.
Yep, I hear you.
Absolutely essential. You have to have a strategy, whatever that looks like. Yeah. I've been guilty of thinking a strategic plan meant some 150-page document that you put on a shelf and maybe don't ever use. But the reality is, a piece of paper or a whiteboard can be the tool you need to develop a really good strategic plan. Yep. It's really just a map from where you are now to where you want to go.
Exactly.
That's really what it is.
Exactly. So do we need to talk about the word strategy a little bit? What does that word strategy really mean?
I guess, as in layman's term, I suppose you could interchange the word strategy with the word plan. It's a plan to get where you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's very, 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 very important, obviously, planning in business. Without a plan, I think there's a saying, if you don't have a plan, you plan to fail.
That's right. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
There you go. And so planning is essential. But then there's also the flip side, where I think there's the old army saying where the best made plans don't work as soon as they get in contact with the enemy, so to speak.
Yep. I like from the art of war is that every battle is won before it is fought. I think that's an incredible anecdote around planning as well. Yeah,
that is really, really good around strategy. So essentially what we're looking at today is how do we make good strategic business plans? Now at the Smart Hub, I hear a lot of people say, all I need to do now, I want to start a business, or I want to grow my business, or I need to take this to the next level. And what I think I need to do is to make a business plan. And in fact, in modern best business practice, business plans are a little bit frowned upon, to be honest, because thick documents that sit on the shelf that we hardly ever refer back to, they're just not the way to go anymore. One-page strategic plans is really what we're looking at now in terms of modern best business practice. So how do you think a business owner should go about making a strategic plan?
Well, it always begins with starting with the end in mind, like anything else. And I remember when I first got into coaching, one of the first questions I would always ask people was, why does your business even exist? What's the big picture of what you're trying to achieve here? And I was taken aback by how many people couldn't answer that question. Like, so where do you want to go? So in the past, I've been guilty of the same thing. When you try and do some planning, it's not a case of not knowing where you want to go, but sitting down and trying to build step 1, step 2, step 3. When in reality, if we're going to do a plan, we need to start at the other end and work our way back. So that's whatever format your plan might look like. It's always a case of let's start at the end and step our way back to where we are today.
So when you make business plans yourself, when you make strategic plans, what do you start with? Do you start with a revenue target? Do you start with impact target? Like, what is it that you think about in terms of the goal for doing strategic thinking and planning?
I guess it depends on the goal. What are we planning to achieve? When we did the strategic plan for my business this year, which you and I sat down in your office and did together, we come in with a revenue goal. But we come in with a revenue goal that I had built through, again, probably building a plan from the ground up instead of the top down. But we stuck with that number and said, well, now let's build a plan to get to that number. So that was with a revenue goal. At the beginning of this year, I had my personal goals were around being the fittest I've ever been physically, mentally, spiritually, and financially. And so in each of those areas, you've got different goals for what that looks like. So it's not always revenue or money driven. I have a overarching goal that I want to directly empower 10,000 people to change the world, and knowing the ripple effect that would come from that. So that's an impact target rather than a revenue target. So for revenue wise, some of those people might represent thousands of dollars, others might represent zero.
Yeah. But somehow they all dovetail into the strategy,
100%,
right?
yep.
Yeah, I really like that. I think one of the elements that you do so well that I always admire, Matthew, is you do heaps of research. So I remember you came into my office and what you were saying is, I've looked at blah, 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 and blah, and what they are doing is this and this and this and this. So competitor analysis is a really great way in which you can be inspired to set your own goals and to see what's possible in the world. So I think that's a really great place to start, to look broadly in your industry or in your sector. What are other competitors doing? Who is ahead of you in the road, and what kind of goals are they achieving, and what kind of targets are they kicking, and how does that sit with you? What are you able to do? What is your strategy for doing research? Do you just Google? How do you start? How do you document? How do you go about researching what other people are doing?
I probably do find a lot of like sort of online programs and that kind of stuff you can do where I might be going over a lot of the same stuff, but it's pulling out that one thing, that two things.
How do you go about searching for those programs? Like, how do you find the information in the first place?
Yeah, look, I probably obviously start with okay, what am I trying to achieve now? I've either hit a brick wall and I've got a problem, or I've got a goal, or there's something I'm trying to do, and so I'll generally note down this is what I want to achieve. And then my first port of call, like a lot of people, is I'll go and ask Professor Google what it's got to say about about that issue, or I'll go and look up. There are some certain individuals in the field that I already follow, so I'll go and find out what do they say about that, about the issue.
Right.
I'm very big on model what works. Don't try and reinvent the wheel.
Yes.
Don't be the guy at the front dying with 100 arrows in your back. Model what's gone before and then tweak it and make it your own. Don't. I suppose a big thing there is model, don't copy. Copying will make you look like a chump, but model what works. And so there's probably not a lot of strategic planning goes into my strategic planning, so to speak, or into my research, but it really depends what challenge am I having, what thought process am I going through at the moment, that kind of thing,
Okay, excellent. So number one thing when you're starting to think about what goals to set is to do some competitor analysis and do some research. And what that does is it informs you of what's possible. It might inspire you, it might spark a new idea or give you an idea about how you can innovate things, do things better or differently. And then you set a specific goal, right?
Absolutely.
With a specific deadline. So talk us through what the elements of a really great goal is.
I guess before we get there is just taking a step back, is when we're setting that goal, it's important to ask that question of why.
Yeah.
I made that comment about always asking why does your business exist. When I've got an event coming up soon, the very first session actually gets people to do a really deep analysis of why are you here.
Yeah.
Now, for me, that's somewhat strategic in that it will make sure that I'll have if I can get people's real analysis of why they're there, I'm going to really have them motivated to stick with me for 2 days. But so yeah, always ask that question of why is this important first to reevaluate the goal. We're working through how we get to the strategy, aren't we?
What are the elements of a good goal?
Yeah, you've got the SMART analogy for goals that we've talked about. A goal is specific, it's measurable, it's actionable, it's relevant, it's time bound. There's certain different interchangeable letters there. That's the one I work to. I don't know if I can remember the analogy. I also like the analogy of having some dumb goals as well. Now, dumb goals, at least the sort of big picture, dream driven. I can't remember all of the analogy. Just go and Google dumb goals and you'll find the explanation there. But yeah, a good goal, it's got to be relevant to the big picture. You've got to have your big picture vision for who you are and what you want to achieve, whether that's personally, business, whatever. And a good goal will be a step along the journey to that big picture vision. And it will, if it's not specific, you're really shooting yourself in the foot. The man who aims for nothing will surely hit it. Yeah. An ambiguous goal is somewhat aiming for nothing.
True, absolutely. So just to go back to the why. So why are you setting this goal? One of the strategic thinking models that you can use is the 5-fold why. So you keep asking yourself why 5 times. So why do you want to make $1 million? Because I want to feel financially free, or I don't know, make a lot of money. Why do you want to make a lot of money? Because it will give me, it will make me not worry about money. Why do you want to stop worrying about money, as an example? Because I lack security. Why do you want to feel secure? Because it makes me feel free, just as an example. So then the driver behind making $1 million, as an example, is really personal freedom. And what you can do then is you can really go and look at other ways in which you can create personal freedom in your life too. And then you can also set the $1 million goal and then, of course, work backwards on how we're going to achieve that.
And if you don't have the why in place, when things inevitably get tough, which is usually 1 or 2 steps on the beginning of the journey, you'll pack it in because you don't actually have a reason to persist. I like, just building on that, is actually going 7 levels deep. That's what my random research has told me, that the magic number is 7.
Wow. So you asked the same question 7 times.
7 times, yep. When you get to about 4 or 5, what you notice is a shift between head and heart thinking.
Yes. And values.
Yes. And so once you make that shift, you're in the ballpark. But 7, for some reason, seems to be the magic number.
Nice. So you just keep asking yourself why. Yep. And do you find that people get stuck and they actually have to really reflect on why?
Yeah.
Or just the answer comes?
Sometimes the answer just comes. Generally speaking, somewhere along the line, everyone, myself included, you'll find at least somewhere in the 7 numbers where you've got to stop and start thinking a bit deeper. I've had people go, we get to 3 levels in and they go, I don't really know, I'm going to walk away from this now. And it was probably a good move at that point.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll go 3 or 4 levels deep and go, it's actually not a good idea.
Yeah.
It's not a smart goal or a relevant goal. So.
Yeah, and that's really important to know before you set the goal and spend a year working on something.
Absolutely.
Or your lifetime or 10 years working on something. Yeah, you really have to understand your own personal driver. Okay, so then once you have the goal and you're thinking strategically, what do you do next?
I suppose once you've got the goal and you're in that mind frame of strategically thinking, you're now trying to map out the steps to get to it. So I'm a very visual person. But you've got to understand yourself. What works for me may not work for you. I do like to get in a room with a whiteboard and just write down a whole lot of ideas, and then you'll try and plot those different ideas along a timeline, and suddenly you'll find yourself with this is where I am now, and this is where I want to be, and I'll have a step-by-step line. And then I'll take it and I'll do the little fiddly things of turning it into a to-do list, etc., breaking it down into an actual system that we'll use to follow the plan through. Yeah.
Okay, so do you do, different case scenario thinking? Do you think, well, what if this was going to happen? What about that? What about that? And then think it through? Or how do you go about mapping the plan?
I have to say I'm getting better at the what if. If you look at some of my
scenario thinking.
Yeah, if you look at some of my sort of strategic maps or that, you're not going to have sort of forks in the road, you know, with the if this then that.
Yeah.
You know, but I am definitely getting better at thinking this is where we're going, but what if? If this scenario plays out, if A, if B, if I think I need 3 plans or 3 different options, making sure I've got 5, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So definitely it's creeping in more. I may not document the scenario-based thinking as much, but yeah, it's a critical element of your planning, and always never going, well, this will just happen. There's always got to be a what if. This goes on, this happens, that happens.
Yeah, what's plan B and what's plan C, and where's the contingency in the plan?
Absolutely. I always have, I have a son with type 1 diabetes.
Yeah.
With type 1 diabetes, you can generally speaking live your life relatively normally as long as you manage it well, but there's always that plan of what if I have to just down tools at some point. And so you've always got to think that could happen. He's at home with his mum today, but if he was at school, there's every possibility we're sitting here doing this interview and an alarm goes off on the phone because something's going on. So, you have to think through, what if that happens? I can't ignore it. How do we deal with that? So, yeah, even some of those more personal things that you might not necessarily think of, you've got to think of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so then you have the goal, you've been through a few what if scenarios, and I suppose you do that all the way through your planning.
Yeah.
So what would you do next? If we've written down the goal and we're in the room with a whiteboard, how do you go about creating that strategic plan?
Well, I think sort of we're at that point with the whiteboard where we're obviously analysing what the goal is constantly. How does this fit? Does this fit the big picture? What logically works together? Those kind of things. And I'm really trying to. I work in a very linear fashion, so I'm always just trying to lock things into a block of this, block of that. I hate things that linger. I need to tick one thing and move on. I had a boss previously who used to sort of drill into you the fact that he needed to stop the plate spinning, and I think I'm a little bit the same. I need to be able to finish A and move on to B. That doesn't always work for everybody, so I'm trying to sort of logically make things fit from this end to that end. Visual models I find are very good, again being a visual person, so when we did the strategic plan we ended up with effectively 2 different ascending pyramids that we work up. This is what we'll do on the bottom level that will feed into the second, that will feed into the third, which will get us to this goal, which is then a part of the big goal. So we've actually broken a bigger goal down into 2 separate goals, and one strategic plan really has 2.
I think the other thing that's worth mentioning is when we said to do your strategic plan, we actually had a planning session and did a strategic plan, and then a couple of weeks later said, hang on a minute, I don't think that's going to work. We need to rethink this. And that happens often where you set your plan A and then you reflect on that a bit and you go, I just don't think that's going to work for this and this and this and this reason. Yeah,
that's right. And the thing is, again, if you look at strategic plans with different for different things working for different people, the average person come and looked at our strategic plan, or my strategic plan that we developed, which is on a whiteboard in my office. That's the dusty document. It's on a whiteboard in my office.
Nice.
And if somebody else looked at it, they'd probably think I was Rain Man or something. They're not going to actually figure out what's going on there. But I know what it means, and that's what matters.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Kylie, Brendan, Everest, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you here on our HubLive. We're coming to you live from the Smart Hub. I'm here with Matthew Doyle, and we're talking about strategic planning. And what we've essentially covered so far is that when you sit down to do a strategic plan, number one thing that you want to do is maybe do some competitor analysis and some market research to be inspired. Hey, Nagaraj, nice of you to join us. Hope everything's going well in Life Sciences Queensland. So back to our strategic planning, do some research and get some inspiring goals, then set smart goals or dumb goals. And then we're going to think it backwards from our goal all the way back to where we are now. Matthew's been saying that he's very visual, and I think visual planning is ultimately, in my opinion, the best. Even if you're not a super visual person, I'm not a super visual person, I also know that we need to be looking at the plans, and also discussing it with other people helps a lot, so that you're not the only mind thinking this through. Now, one thing that I do know in business, or even in us creating the Smart Hub, the one thing that I recognized and realized very early on is that doing one thing is not enough. You can do one great thing, but it is not going to be enough to achieve any level of great result. So for us at the Smart Hub, our strategic operational plan essentially says that we have to build 5 pillars. So our vision, as I've said to you before, is for us to be the home of the entrepreneur, a place where business can thrive. And to do that, we need to build a community of people. And to build a community of people called an ecosystem, we need to build 5 pillars. So we're doing the building of these 5 pillars simultaneously. And what they are is talent, bringing smart people or talented people and helping them become smarter and more talented by doing education programs. Number 2, density, so bringing a group of people together in a small space so that collaboration and innovation can happen. Number 3, getting the right culture in place, which our culture is very entrepreneurial. It's founder first, which means every decision I make as a Smart Hub manager is to think about you as the business owner and to help you have everything you need to thrive in business. And the other culture we have, which Matthew, you're pretty much demonstrating right now, is a give first culture. So you're really
Absolutely.
giving of your time to give back to the community. And then we have capital, so how we can Rockhampton Angels and other things, and then government regulation, which we help inform, like we did yesterday in our female founders session. So, but we're building 5 pillars and executing 15 strategies to build these 5 pillars. So that is a bit of a picture of what a strategic plan will look like. It's not a one-dimensional plan. It's not this is a linear way of thinking. You do execute linearly, or you have your team execute in that way, but you have to think it through from almost like building a building and almost seeing the foundation and seeing the pillars and seeing the roof, and the roof's a bit of what you're trying to achieve and so forth. So in your business, you were saying when we did your strategic planning, we broke your goal down into 2 goals.
That's right.
And then we looked at all the different elements that we would need to build to achieve those 2 goals.
That's right. And then so I guess if we were going to go linear, the next step after that is we break down into what do we have to do daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. So I have literally the reference is the DWMQ, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly.
Yeah.
So, and that's the next breakdown. So what are now the next chunk of smaller goals that have to be ticked off to meet the big goal?
Yeah. I really like the 90-day cycle. I really like when you have a 12-month goal and you break that down. Well, strategic thinking is more about even a level up from that. So overall, how are we going to achieve what the business needs to set up to achieve? But then when we bring that down to an action plan, I think if you have that specific 12-month goal, and then you break that down into your 90-day goal in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and so forth, how are we going to execute to get this done? Do you go to that level of detail? What level of detail do you go to in writing action plans?
Yeah, I try and I try and look at the big picture, where we're going, and then break it down into quarterly chunks. Where do I need to be here? When do I need to be at that point? And it all comes back down to that daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly for me. When you get there, okay, this is what we're doing in this 3-month chunk. What do I need to achieve this week to the next step? What do I need to achieve this month? And what do I need to do today to tick that off? And evaluating that every single day. What do I need to do today to move towards what I need to achieve this week, what I need to achieve this month, what I need to achieve this quarter, and making it all work together. So if I could completely sideline things, really, one of the things when we talk about strategic planning is that it can be one of those mystified, high-level kind of, we talk about strategic planning and it sounds like, we need to go to university or something. But the reality is we're all doing some level of strategic thinking, strategic planning every single day.
True.
Like, as I sit here, I'm just thinking about, I live in Gracemere and I take my son to school at Heights College and then I come back here. And if you lived in Rockhampton for any period of time, we're a town swarmed by red lights.
Yes, we are.
And so even just the time that I leave home to dodge the morning traffic, it's about a half-hour run. The way that I actually deliberately, you might think it's a bit nuts, the way that I'll actually weave down around through town to get to Heights College I don't take what would be the normal route. And that is some level of strategic thinking. I'm thinking, how can I avoid the red lights, avoid the most traffic, and get there as quick and safe as possible? we all make those decisions every day, and that really is what strategic thinking, strategic planning is in a practical sense.
It's about solving or achieving something
Yeah.
in the best, easiest,
That's
frictionless way.
I don't
possible.
whiteboard out that trip, but
Well, in the whiteboard in your head you do.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, in the whiteboard in your head you do. So you were going back to the 90 daily, monthly,
Yes.
weekly, daily goals. So do you do Sunday evening planning? Many entrepreneurs do. Do you have that?
Sunday afternoon is generally my week ahead kind of time. Look at the month. I've got a really, really, really good planner that has a weekly reflection and forward thinking, a monthly reflection and forward thinking.
Yeah, what planner do you like to use?
I use Brendan Burchard's High Performance Planner.
Yeah.
So it's got you're thinking for every day. It's got daily setting the day up and reflections at night, as well as your plan through the day, your actual main goals for the day. But it's got a weekly review, not only of your progress towards your goals, but you do a whole life area assessment. It's not a business planner; it's a life high performance planner.
Yeah.
But so and for me, Sunday afternoon is the time to do the review and the week ahead. A lot of my stuff isn't focusing on the mechanics of the business strategy, it's the tactics and habits of me personally, which is why I choose to focus on personal high performance, because again, thinking strategically, that's where the weak link will come, is keeping myself focused and keeping myself doing the job and performing and that level. So that's where my focus sits, rather than the day-to-day business strategy, because if I get the personal high performance right, the business strategy will go with it.
If we're going to make this about life, what I really love to do is to set some priorities for the year based on that life assessment. And then I have a little bit of a habit that I do every morning that really helps me stay on track. So I write in a journal every morning. I wake up, I have the journal next to my bed. I'll take my journal and my pen and I'll write at the top the date, and then I write what I'm grateful for. So immediately I'm setting my mindset as a gratitude mindset, as opposed to thinking about all the problems or the challenges that we have. The next thing that I do is I write down my 3 priorities, and every single day I write down the same 3 priorities, because I have 3 priorities set for the year. And then after that I write what would make today great, and that's really my to-do list for the day. And then I check whether what's on that to-do list actually correlates with my priorities. And often the things that make it onto the to-do list have nothing to do with what I've set as my annual priorities or my 90-day goals. And then they just have to be rubbed off the list, because if you do the things that don't align with where you want to go, you're never going to get there. And it's so easy for other people's problems to become your problems, then it takes you off track.
And I mean, my process during the day is probably, I'm guided by what's already in the planner. Is probably pretty similar. Like my first question isn't so much a gratitude question as what are you most excited about, I think, or what.
That's nice.
Something like that. What are you some kind of what are you most looking forward to today, or what is that kind of thing. And it goes through a very similar process. Your reflections at night, what went well, what could I have done better. Same thing on a weekly basis. So it's a very similar sort of process.
So technology, let's talk finally about what technology tools we can use. Interestingly, the technology that both you and I seem to favour is paper and pen for this one.
Yep.
Yes. Do you have any tools that you think work well, tech tools on your phone or your iPad that you can use?
Yeah, I'm guilty of playing with too many things rather than just settling on things, because you'll always find something that's got a feature what you're using doesn't have.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can find any number of good project management tool will help when it comes to breaking it down, particularly in the day, week, month, quarter. The high level strategic planning sort of stuff, the best tool is a whiteboard and some markers and then a camera to take a photo of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But to keep you on track, you're looking at there's any manner of different project management tools that you can use, and you can use them to track the steps toward achieving personal goals as well as business. I know we've got Kylie there who loves Asana, runs her business and everything on Asana. I recently moved away to that because I implemented the entire back end of my business. I moved into Zoho One and all their different suite of products as well. So there's 2 different project management stuff in there, which is where you effectively implement the step-by-step process of achieving your plan. So.
Well, if we really like the whiteboard method, I know that one of our Smart Hub members, Phil Martin, works on a software called Game Plan, and it works very similarly to actually whiteboarding out what needs to be done, and then
it really does. It's a great tool, and that's effectively the format is a whiteboard. It does do the Gantt chart and all that kind of thing for you. I've used it. The reason I moved away from Game Plan was purely because I didn't have a lot of time-bound projects, which is what it was probably more suited to. But again, it would work for what we're doing with this event coming up in 2 months' time, because it's a set 2-month process. It works really well. It is a great plan or a great system that
great online tool.
Absolutely, and really, really cost-effective system as well. So
yeah, absolutely
great.
So essentially, I think to wrap it up, we can definitely agree that without a plan, you're definitely not going to go anywhere.
That's right.
So you do need some firm goals, and you do need some planning around how to make those firm goals work. If you need help setting plans up for your business, or thinking strategically about your business, or even help thinking about how to do market research, competitor analysis, or how to access any of these tech tools, the Smart Hub's the place to come.
The Smart Hub is the place to come, absolutely. So.
Yeah, to get that done, and then thinking it backwards, and then setting your plans in place to the point where every single thing that you do every day is aligning you and driving your life or your business in the direction of where you want to go.
Yeah, and you made that point about things creeping into your list that don't move you in that direction.
Yeah.
So you've always got to evaluate what you're doing, what's creeping in, why are you doing it, because like you said, things will creep into your list on your behalf rather than you putting them in there.
Absolutely.
So yeah, always doing that regular evaluation of what's actually on my to-do list. I recently sat down and wrote basically everything I was working on right now. And I went through the ABCDE prioritisation process and was shocked at how many things I went down and wrote with ease that I had let creep into my list. So it's important to do that analysis, because they weren't in the plan when I set it up.
Yeah.
So it's important to do that analysis frequently.
Yeah, and to do a stop doing list as well as
a not to do list.
A not to do list.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's then that level of personal productivity. We can have a whole conversation about how to become more productive personally, about creating the right workflow, the right energy, the right task management.
Even when to make decisions. Having some strategic decision making. I have a 2-hour block of time every week in my calendar to make decisions. And I just, in my project list, it's just, I build a decision list, and this is the stuff I need to make this, to just ensure that I'm not having lost productivity elsewhere around decision making.
Oh, that's such a great idea. That's a nice little innovation. So you're parking essentially the big decisions in a time frame where you know that you'll be most switched on, that where you won't have decision fatigue to start with to actually make those decisions.
That's right.
And so essentially that burden is not in the back of your head of what should I do, what should I do, what should I do.
So it's basically like having a to-do list, a not to-do list, and a to-decide list, effectively.
Nice. And where do you keep these lists?
I keep basically in your project management software, because I assign the tasks to myself. You can pull out all the list tasks assigned to you, and that becomes your to-do list. Mm-hmm. Things not to do are probably more in my part of my reflective process rather than something I have written down. And my things to decide list is actually set up as a project of its own. So I just have assigned dates that I'll make those decisions. So it's basically set up as a project.
Awesome. And do you then reflect on the strategy when you make those decisions? How does that work?
Yeah, it all depends what decision you're making. Like, you could be making decisions about things that are personal life, family life, business, all in this depending on what's going on.
Decision making time, yes.
Yep. But yeah, you'll absolutely reflect on the strategy, because sometimes when you're going, okay, I need to make a decision now about whatever it might be, you're asking yourself the question, does it fit into the big picture? Is it relevant? If I say yes to this, is it moving the needle where it needs to move? Or is it just marking time and wasting time? So you have to reflect on your strategy and your direction and where you're trying to go. Absolutely.
I love that. Well, ultimately, having direction is exceptionally important, especially in business. And then we need to communicate this direction to our teams so that everyone knows what the goal is and everyone knows what the plan is. As we discussed last week in the 7 keys to a highly effective or winning team, having that action plan in place, while knowing exactly what the vision is, what the goal is, what the culture is, what the action plan is, and then helping have that communication. Everybody's involved and we're just getting it done together.
Yes.
And essentially, if you have that in place, you will build an amazing business. And then if you have enough flexibility in that structure too, where things might not go according to plan, where you can then quickly invoke the planning method or planning habits that you have to fix whatever has come up, and then to set a new direction and off you go.
Absolutely.
I think that's the way to win in business.
Yes, I agree completely.
So we're almost done for today for our HubLive. Any parting words?
No, I don't think so. I think we've covered some of those key things. The big thing to take away, no matter how you plan, do it.
Yes.
Is that every battle is won before it is fought, and if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, whichever analogy you want to use. I think that's the number one thing you should take away, is always be planning and always be evaluating.
Absolutely, absolutely. You mentioned The Art of War. I really love that book as a strategic thinking guide. Do you rely on it too?
Well, I have to be honest, I've only read it once, but as soon as I read through it, I could see what the hype was about, so to speak.
Yeah.
I absolutely intend to go back and read it again. It's a great strategic manual. It was written as a strategic manual for war, but so many of the analogies are so true for running business that if you haven't read it, you should read it.
Yeah, The Art of War, for sure. Thank you very much for joining us for HubLive. Next week, I'll have another amazing guest on the couch with me, and I look forward to speaking to you about more direction next week. Thank you so much, sir.
Anytime.
And reach out to us at the Smart Hub if you have any questions or need help with the planning. See you soon.